And the result was that gold was given as a fifth of what Bushmeat seal was given to Ghana. We looked at what that translated into. And at that point, at that time, we saw that mining was giving the country all put together about 5%. In fact, subsequent years, when the EITI started working on revenues and how we benefited, one particular year, mining gave us 0.8% as contribution to GDP. And as we speak now, the contribution of mining is still hovering around 4%. That's the reality. And so, if you look at the devastation, the destruction, and then pitch that against the economic returns, you ask yourself whether we should continue mining or not. But I'll leave that question to you. So, examples of how community people lost their livelihoods. You can see the rock quiz, and you were just dumping the rock. If you are a mother and you have toddlers around the communities, toddlers walk across the street you have. And then with the presence of these dump trucks, you can't leave your children. And so it means you can't engage in economic activity. You have to care for your children at home and not to leave them for them to be killed. The almighty wills are the oil communities. The wills that were killed when we started the oil exploration and exploitation. In fact, I'll be 69 this year, and I come from Western region.
Happy birthday.
No, I can say I'm 60 now today.
Advance.
Growing up until we discovered oil, I heard of 2 instances of whales washing ashore. And any time a whale washes ashore, it's a funeral. Because you have to dig a grave for that whale. It's huge, those who know whales. And so the whole community will have to stop whatever they are doing to dig a grave for the whale. And now I have lost count. But when we did the story, about 30 whales had washed ashore. And so you can imagine the impact. Now, still on the environmental costs, this water is not a pond for it, and it's not a natural pond. It used to be a pit, which were those of you who know Okwasi, which were Okwasi area. It was a pit. And then as a way of, and this pit was about 15 meters from the school, the crèche. In fact, I went there, I saw it. And so there was this whole cry of children, they die and things like that. So they decided to fill the pond, and they backfilled with sludge. And so this soup, the water you are seeing is a soup of sand and metals. And this is how it's done. So the pit is down, and then they start filling with the soup. And as it gets filled, they reinforce the edges, and so the soup is buried into the earth crust, and then a mountain will be created. And then within the mountain is a soup of heavy metals, and there's a borehole down. And community people are fetching the borehole. We tested this borehole, and arsenic, cadmium, iron, and manganese, and these all will have effects on the human being. And this pace, which is developing, it's mostly down there. Now, what was the last time we went there? So 1 month ago. Now it's a mountain, and it's at Kenyasi Damsho. It's now a mountain, but I got this picture when it was being developed. That's a containment pond. So they were reinforcing, and then now, if you go there, it's a whole pond. I've talked about the economic activities, but the major one is the capital flights. And then companies, they were invoicing, under-invoicing, net lost jobs. You see, companies claim that they are developing the country, they are creating jobs. Let me just cite one example. The Goldfields, within 5 years, displaced about 30,000 land lots. So if each person has an average dependent of 4 in the community, just calculate the losses. And then the job creation, rather they retrenched the workers underground. And then instead of the tens, the 3,000s, and the 10,000, the 7,000 was working in the water, the job was reduced to 1,000, 1,500. And all these years, if you put together the job creation of miners, it's still hovering less than 20,000. All the mining companies put together, the mechanized ones. And look at the devastation, the number of communities displaced and things like that. So, in reality, we are just losing our revenues, we are losing everything. And then the externalization of costs. When this, the pits and then the water, these facilities are left in the communities. They are there forever. We are not looking at the health implication. We are not assessing the economic implication. We are not assessing the social implication. In my village, if you want to engage in puberty rights or a soul chief or whatever, you need forest, you need water. So once these are lost, there are the intangibles that we are not calculating. And so, although we do a proper cost benefit analysis, we think we are receiving some rates. But is it just a percentage of our capital that we are receiving, or they are really profits from the sector? And so today, if you go to many of the mining companies, now say no, they have their airstrips. This was taken from Japan. So the bullion is lifted straight from the mine. And they may not even pass through Kotuka because there were custom officers stationed on the mine who certify that everything is correct. And then they go. And it has a lot of implications which I will not talk about here. But then who really ascertain whether if they say they are taking 10 bars of gold, it's really 10 and not 20. So some of these those are there. And then the water stress and water pollution. I've shown some figures already. But what I'm working with Center for Environmental Impact Analysis, we did some survey in Okwase and Takwa area. And the report was published in 2009. And we identified that we took samples of 250 water sources, either from wells, from the well that I talked about, we sampled it, from spring water, from borehole, from water that was supplied by the company to communities who have lost their water bodies. And in Takwa, all the water bodies tested had heavy metals. Okwase, our 91% of them had heavy metals and other pollutants in that. And so, if I say I'm afraid to drink bottled water, what is the source? Where are they bottling the water from? If you know, then you'll be comfortable. But I'm not comfortable. So, from the pictures that you show, you see that the seepages are constant, and groundwaters are being polluted because once you bury this sludge in the earth crust, it goes down. Look at the pits that I showed you. the pits. So this one, if you are living up there and you want to sink a well, you get water from this level. And so once you have this well backfilled with drop waste, you are sure to get the groundwater polluted. You are getting me. I think some of you are sleeping on. Am I that boring? So the water stress, the water pollution for me is unacceptable. And I don't see how we are going to reclaim, to redeem. It's a redemption. It should be a redemption. These water bodies, we are losing them almost forever. Yes, it takes a long time, about half years, or 1 million half years. That's how we quantify the natural processes where water bodies are depleted. For it to be depleted. But that is where we are born and not now. We've had situations where newborns develop a facility that discharge fecal matter into community drinking streams. This one is public knowledge. We've done a whole press conference on this many years ago. We have a similar situation in Nago, Yakre. The same sort happened. And then if you go to the gas and mining act, I'm not a lawyer, so I won't go there much. Just look at section 17. You can convey, divert, impound, whatever, do anything to the water body within your mining concession. And so that's exactly what they are doing. And we are having the effects. We did some work on gender dimensions of mining, and my village, if you go there, our staple food is saka nyabempe. You know saka?
No.
Rice. Saka nyabempe. Because we're growing a rice and abe grows like wheat. So if you want to cultivate the land, you have to destroy some abe. And so if you are a woman and you don't have any education, just pick your baskets and you are done. You have your income. We have a lot of spices, the non-timber products, a lot of them, the skills, the mushrooms, and these are sources of income, especially for the youths and women. So once the forest is gone, it means everything is lost and women become more vulnerable. Then there's this concern about the broken homes. Men will take their compensation once the money is in their pockets. We are looking for fair, colored women like me. Even if you are not beautiful like me, they still want you because you are fair. And that has caused a lot of havoc in homes. And we have talked about the pollution of water and how people have to walk miles to fetch water. And if you are in your background with you that you went out chasing after other men and stuff like that. We did the whole research and we saw that only 3.1 women had access to compensation. Even when we were the main farmers on the land, compensations were paid to second parties like their husbands or their uncles or brothers and things like that. And then if you go to any mining community, the STD, they are very prevalent, the malaria, the respiratory tract infections, these are all documented research. Why? Because these notices are there. Do not drink. If I'm an animal, they are punching. Now I want to drink water, and then you put this post. Do not drink. How do I read? Or if I'm a human being and cannot read and write, how do I read that I'm not supposed to drink? And so the infection, the contaminants get into us. This man, this picture, they are passing a sinus village. I don't know whether some of you will remember. We did a lot of work on that. And we knew that the company would lie about it, and they did. They said only 15 fishes died, and then the following day, the minister came to say that they identified one. So we term it 50 plus 1 fish syndrome. But then this was what they were doing. They sent people to the riversides to pick dead fishes so that they could lie in the desert. And you want also the singleton. When they had their silent leave in 2009, they also sent people. That one was even more developed. And these were the operations and then the fishes that were collected. This is not all. The full video, you see about 3 of them, and they were still working, collecting the dead fishes. So, a protein source for our own women and men in the communities. First, now, you put your cassava on fire, and then you are going to inspect your trap. And then before the cassava is cooked, your fish is ready and your soup is very palatable. Because you are getting shrimps, crabs, and then river fish for your soup. So all that you need is onion and some salt. So more of this, the no swimming, no fishing, because they admit that they've polluted the water bodies. And these are implications, as I've said. And we did some, as part of the research we did on the water quality situation in the western and then Ashanti region. We listed some of these results. You can see that they were all above the permissible levels of cadmium and lead and manganese and arsenic. And this woman, Joanna, is fetching from one of the polluted water because we had to train them to test the water quality. And so she was just doing that. You've seen this picture already. This is the night from Dumasi. And the results are these. These pictures were live pictures from Papa Government Hospital then. And so the researcher worked with the hospital and did the research. And the research was published. And it was vetted by the ethical committee of the Ministry of Health before it was published. He quoted in the decimal. The committee said it should be quoted in percentage. So if you see from 0.0001% to 0.1%, you think it's minute, but that's times thousands. So it's 1,000% the level of pollutants. And so these are some of the live pictures from Papa Government Hospital. So do we have choices? I think we have choices, and it will be continued. But then it's not an isolated case in Ghana. I just quoted some of the observations from Venezuela, from Saudi Arabia, and then from the copper fields. And they are all talking about the same thing, that if you do not manage mining well, it will be a case. And in Ghana, we have not done so. But then it doesn't mean we have sat quiet all this while. We've had a lot of interaction. As for media engagement, I don't know the number of times we've had engagement with the media. And we've had engagement with the churches, and we've had engagement with the politicians. We've had engagement committee, engagement, that's our work, so I'll need to talk about this. We've had engagement with activists from the sub-region. We've had engagement with the region, Africa. We've had engagement at a global level to talk about some of these things. Because if you are probably so the more you come together, network, you are able to understand the issues, and then we can develop strategies to work on it. We've been called for the states to do a cost-benefit analysis before we can decide whether, as a country, we want to continue mining in this manner or we want to do it differently. As we speak, the last check that we did, they were telling us that they do not have experts. Am I lying? They do not have experts to do so, and that if they need to do a cost-benefit analysis, then it will be some dubious monies. But then all of us are experts. in our own fields, some of us are economists, some of us are environmentalists, some of us are scientists, and there is researches that we conduct in Ghana, Ghanaians do them. But they are saying they don't have the resources to do so. But they have the resources to swing. And so we are waiting for them. And the media to, we have trained you, but then I don't know, but I'll leave it at that. But our aim is that once you understand the issues, that will be 80% of the struggle achieved. If you do not understand the issue and you want to project or you want to focus on the human rights violations in the mining community, a company official will come and present a very nice picture of how they are doing it right. They present a picture of $1, 1 ounce project. And if you delve into it as a journalist, you realize that no community person is involved in that activity, especially when it comes to decision making. So we need to understand what we want, and then we can fight. We need information. The affected people, we've been doing this for 27 years and we continue to do that. We need to address the weak capacities in the communities. Now, if you go to a community, they will tell you about it. The community people will tell you, we don't want you here because somebody has paid them to see so. And then they take their money and spend. And was it last 2 weeks ago? Was it last week or last 2 weeks? I've forgotten. Yes. Yesterday, the last one we had together. And that's, oh, now you should come again because they have spent their money and they will listen to you. You've taken your compensation, you've spent it, and then what do we tell you? Even if you tell you that you are entitled to this, it's of no use. So we need to get people to understand that it is in our interest as a state to ensure that the state does its rights, especially when it comes to the protection of rights of vulnerable community. And then, yes, the networking, the building of organizations is very useful. And there are lots of tools that we can use. The lawyers will talk about that. But I mentioned the conventions, the bilateral protocols, the treaties. Ghana is almost always the first to sign and ratify. But then when it comes to internalize it, no, we don't. We stop at that. And so, yes, we have very nice protocols, but they are not justiciable. You cannot go to court to demand that this miner did not respect the rights of free, prior, and informed consent because it's not in our laws. But then it's been ratified. It's part of our policy. So then advocacy should speak. And I believe in the voices of many, and these are some of the protocols that we've ratified, but we are not internalizing. Some of them are voluntary. It's also an indicative measure whether companies are doing it right. Because most of them sign on that even if the laws of the states are weak, they will use best practices based on the protocols that we signed to ensure that things are done right. So please don't speak. Let us behave like the community from Doko Panta. After their education, they saw that if they do, they will lose their lands. And they are maize farmers, they are watermelon farmers. Now they are shifting into cashew, but it's not developed. So even if they want compensation, what would be the level of compensation? And so they demonstrated and took away the ones their chiefs and everybody away from them. And so these are still some of the things that we can be looking at. So these are conclusions. We should never think that because we are small group, we cannot make an impact. Waka journalists said that so it's a husband and wife association. Now we are talking about 4,000 or 5,000 people who identify as Waka. And so yes, it's done as a husband-wife association. Now we are working in 170 plus communities in 8 regions of the country. And so it takes a spark to get the fire going, but soon we'll all go on. So let us all be aware, because we are all citizens of Ghana, and then do those right to save this country. So please, if you have questions. Yes, sir.
Congratulations.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. You keep emphasis on the media. And sometimes we followed you for years. And sometimes you do the story, then the company will come after you. They will sue your company. When they sue you, the company will tell you to maybe withdraw the story. So you don't have a choice.
Are you saying they will sue or they will threaten?
Threaten, whatever.
Because we have said all these things and they are in the public domain. Nobody has ever even threatened to sue us. If you say it's not factual, go to court. And that's why we prove the case. And so at times it's good that if you are being threatened, anyway, some of you are private. I understand.
Yeah.
But then it's not because you are reporting something which is not factual, because you went to the community, you saw what was happening. But then other reasons that I don't want to talk about. Yeah. So it's for you to take a stand.
Are you raising your hands?
It's for you to take a position. We have taken a position. I could have worked for any mining company, but I chose to work with communities.
Please, any other contributions, suggestions, questions, feedback? Any other?
We are conferring.
I would say thank you.
Okay. So the next.
So is it because the presentation was so boring that?
No. I mean, it's very touching and sad. Yeah.
So the next on our list.
You see this
video documentary on community experiences, perspective.
What captain is saying like this? You get fat.
We're doing Newmont's
Neither Jonah is ready to support.
So this one we are looking at Newmont's AHAFO, an action project. So let's just listen to what's